In the next 3 tutorials, I will go over the hardware for the MPC One, the MPC Live, and the MPC X. If you only own one of these MPCs, feel free to skip to the video that applies to the MPC that you own. If you're already familiar with your hardware features and the layout, feel free to skip these altogether. The first thing you notice on the MPC One is the beautiful full-color multi-touch display. Beneath that, you have your 16 legendary MPC pads. Of course, there are 8 banks of 16, giving you 128 pads. To navigate between those banks, you go here to these 4 buttons for banks A through D. The secondary function of these buttons is banks E through H. You can access that by either holding Shift or double tapping the button. To the right of the touchscreen, you have your 4 touch-sensitive Q-Link knobs. These allow you to adjust various parameters and settings. To the right of that, you have your Q-Link button. You press this to change between columns of Q-Link knobs, essentially giving you 16 Q-Link knobs. To the left of your pads, you have your full level, half level button, your 16 level pad perform button, your copy delete button, your erase button, and your note repeat button with the secondary function of latch. Of course, you can hold down the note repeat button and a pad to have that pad repeat at the sequence's tempo and time correction setting. You can also hold down Shift and hit note repeat to latch in note repeat, or double tap the note repeat button to latch it in, therefore not having to hold down the note repeat button while you hold down the pad. To the right of the pads, you have your main button, secondary function grid, your browse button, secondary function save, your track mix button, secondary function pad mix, your track mute button, secondary function pad mute, and your next sequence button, secondary function XFX. Beneath the main button, you have your menu, secondary function preferences button, and your shift button. Remember, the shift button allows you to access your secondary functions of buttons. To the right here, we have our data dial and plus and minus buttons. The data dial allows you to scroll through menus and parameters, and the plus and minus button allow you to increase and decrease values in selected parameters. To the right of the data dial, you have the tap tempo button, secondary function master button, the undo button, secondary function redo. In here, you have your step sequence button, secondary function automation, your time correction button, secondary function on and off, your sampler button, secondary function looper, your sample edit button, secondary function Q-Link edit, your program edit button, secondary function MIDI control, and finally you have your transport with record, overdub, stop, play, and play start. On the front of your MPC One, you have an SD card slot and an 1/8" headphone jack. On the rear of your MPC One, you have your power switch and your power input. You have your Ethernet link connection, a USB-A port to connect flash drives, and a USB-B port to connect the MPC One to your computer and control the MPC software, 1 5-pin MIDI input, 1 5-pin MIDI output, 8 CV gate outputs, a record volume knob to control the inputs going into inputs 1 and 2, 2 1/4" inputs, your main 1/4" outputs left and right, and your master volume.